good afternoon, and welcome to What You Gotta Say. Now it's Tuesday, so you know it's time for the wise ones. And we're going to talk about something. We are in a situation where all of our holidays are coming together at once. We're going to discuss the similarities, the meaning of it, and how it affects our lives. And we're going to do that in 2 minutes, 2 seconds.
Your small business struggled through the pandemic to stay afloat. You need more exposure. Radio and printed ads are good for pet liners. Television commercials are overpriced. Social media ads start cheap, end up expenses. You need an ad team that can get you multimedia exposure. You need MyTV. MyTV will develop a commercial tailored to your business. To get your maximum sales, contact sales@theratemytv.church.
And welcome back to this edition of the Three Wise Ones. Now, Dr. Lang is in London, so I hope she's watching us so we can express how much we're really missing her. But continue on. I still have two of the Three Wise Ones hailing from central New Jersey. He is the Imam of, what was that? No, you were the
Islamic Center
of Ewing, but the new title, you're on the Islamic Council now.
Yes, I am the president of the Islamic Council of Mercer County for Greater Trenton area.
Wow.
Yes, and our one and only Imam, Karib Bashir. How are you?
May peace be upon all of you. We say Assalamu alaikum. And for those of the Islamic faith, Ramadan Mubarak. May you have a blessed holy month of Ramadan.
Wow.
And hailing from New Shoal of America, he is the king of the sweater vest, our very own Rabbi Seth Frisch.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here with all of you. And to the Imam, Assalamu alaikum, and to our fellow visitors of all religions, peace be unto you, and to my Jewish contemporaries, shalom aleichem. Good to see you all.
And peace be unto you as well.
Thank you.
And you all. So we're coming into that combination of holy holidays. Let's start with Rabbi.
Wait, are you telling me that there's some holidays right now that no one's told me about?
How long have you been a rabbi?
No, listen, in our tradition, very few people know this, but as soon as we experience the new moon immediately after the vernal equinox. We start, according to the Torah, the month of Aviv in Hebrew and Nisan in Aramaic. And that is the month of Passover, which is considered the ultimate holiday in the Jewish tradition. We call it in Hebrew a Chag. And that is also in Arabic, Imam, you can correct me if I have this wrong, a Hajj, which implies a pilgrimage, because it implied a pilgrimage to go to the ancient temple in Jerusalem. And our Islamic brothers and sisters have a pilgrimage that goes obviously to the holy city of Mecca, and then obviously Medina as well as part of that whole world of Hajj.
So Passover, God spoke to Moses and told them of he was now bringing the curse that Pharaoh said that he was going to do to the children of Israel. He was now bringing it on to everyone who did not place blood on the lamb's blood on their doorstep.
Wow, you have so overlaid 3 or 4 stories so closely together. It's almost like one of those arches with no cement in there. That's how close those stones are placed together. So this is what I want to say to you. This idea of the killing of the firstborn in the 10th plague, the ultimate of plagues, people have interpreted for years as actually the firstborn of every household dying because, out of some type of movement by either God or Moses or the Israelites to force Pharaoh to let them go. But we know, deep in the roots of our religious traditions, we know that the firstborn is not a child, like you might have seen when Pharaoh orders the babies to be thrown in the Nile. The firstborn is Egypt itself. Egypt always understood as the firstborn of civilizations. It understood itself as the oldest. It descended from a tradition of being the oldest. And so when they say the firstborn, what is really meant in the biblical text is Egypt, as a slave institution, had to die in order to give way to the freedom of the Israelites. It's not about a little baby.
And as Rabbi mentioned earlier, we're at the 3rd day now of Ramadan.
I think that was the Imam, not the Rabbi.
I'm sorry, Imam.
Yes, we are in our 3rd day. And
that's because you two look so much alike.
Hey, he is my brother. Don't you ever try to get between me and my brother, Vince. Don't ever do that.
Hey, we're all brothers from another mother. I mean,
no. The Imam and I have a special brotherhood. You're on the outs. You'll never be one of the Islamic Jewish brotherhood.
I lost another membership. Oh my God.
You know what? You didn't pay your dues. You just didn't pay your dues. We didn't get the check.
See, what had happened was, go ahead, Imam.
Okay. Well, this is the month of fasting. It is the 9th. The rabbi got me. I'm still laughing. But anyway, the 9th month of the lunar calendar. This month, of course, is called Ramadan, and it's in commemoration of the revealing of our holy book, the Quran, to the Prophet Muhammad, prayers and peace be upon him, some over 1,443 years ago. We are on a lunar calendar, so in terms of the start of this month, like all the other months, we go out and we cite what we call the Hilal, the new moon. And of course, that was done. And it was cited in terms of the new moon, so we started this particular holy month of fasting, which
Imam, who cites that? Imam, who cites that and reports
well,
that?
actually, we're encouraged to go out and look for it ourselves.
Right.
However, there are several
websites,
Hilal or moon sighting committees.
Okay.
Some of the ones that we follow, one is in New York, one is in Chicago, one is in Toronto, and they have people that's affiliated with them throughout the country as well as Canada and also the Caribbean. And these are trained individuals. So they would go out and they would report back to some of these moon sighting organizations. However, like I said, we're required to go out and cite it ourselves.
It's fascinating because in ancient times, in the Jewish tradition, witnesses could go to Jerusalem to the Sanhedrin in the temple and report that they had to be a witness and report that they saw it. But because of conditions as the years rolled by, all kinds of weather conditions, they started to do, practice certain forms of astronomy.
Yes.
Not astrology, but astronomy. And they made it a little bit more nuanced, if you will, and
what that takes place in the Islamic community as well. Matter of fact, there's always a debate going on. I follow the school of going out to try to sight the new moon with the naked eye. There are others that take the position of, well, in modern times, they go by calculations or whatever. Others, they use visual aids to sight the new moon. So
you mean like telescopes?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a little bit of a debate going on between the various schools of thought, but we say, alhamdulillah, all the praise belongs to Allah. Whatever date, because sometimes one group will start on one day, and then maybe the next group will start the following day.
Right.
But that's nothing new. Even in the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him, that would happen as well. So the main thing, and we're warned against this, is not to allow it to cause division amongst us.
It's
well,
fascinating
in the Christian faith.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
In the Christian faith, our holiday has dealt with a huge deal of changes. The commercial version is called Easter, which the holiday has nothing to do with rabbits or eggs whatsoever. That's actually I believe it was Esther, the god of fertility.
Astarte.
Or Astarte in the Hebrew. The god of
that's not Hebrew. It was Esther in Hebrew, but Astarte in Persian culture. Yeah.
Right. And it was the god of fertility, in which the eggs were, of course, to bring in prosperity or the, amplification of getting the birth that they so desired. Right. It morphed because of the agnostics in early Christianity trying to actually eradicate the festivals of the infidels, and they found out they couldn't do it, so they just assimilated it because it lined up with the actual anniversary of the death of Jesus Christ.
Well, the Jewish. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So old school Christians don't ever come in there in a church and say Happy Easter, because they'll tell you straight out, Easter has nothing to do with the holiday. But go ahead.
Yeah, but the challenge there, I think, is to bring back the true religious teachings, because being Muslim, of course, not being Christian, but I converted to Islam. So at one time I was a Christian, is that the commercialism that have taken root in the religion itself. And that's a struggle. It really is a struggle to try to fight against that, because I have many relatives and on their holiday of Easter, it's the mention of Jesus is not even hardly there. It's all the other things associated with it, what you just mentioned, Ben.
Yeah, the Easter baskets, the bunnies, and the Easter egg hunts, and of course, emptying every department store of the nudist suits, dresses, and hats.
Yeah.
Or so could blame anyone. I just should mention that in terms of Passover, also referred to as Pesach, it's always going to be at the same time every year because it's intercalated, which means we have to have the vernal equinox first, which is solar based. And then it has to come in the first new moon immediately after the vernal equinox. So it's the lunar and the solar have to converge. So it's going to be set at the same time. And then I understand, Imam, correct me if I'm wrong, but Ramadan, the holy month of Ramadan, because it's lunar, it can travel. It could be in different months of our national calendar, whatever it's called.
Approximately 10 days. It could be as high as 15, but normally 10 days, it will move up every year. So in a person's lifetime, they get, like when I first started fasting, my very first time of fasting was in July. And so then it just rotates. It just rotates. So conceivably, you will fast every month of the year. Of course, when you get around November, December, January, it's a lot easier because first of all, at least where we live at, it's not as hot. And also too, the days are shorter.
Right.
Shorter. Yeah. Yeah. That's the best time to fast, when the days are shorter.
And the best thing is it's only from sun up to sun down. It's not during the night.
Yeah. See, during the summer, there are some hangry people fasting.
It's difficult. It really is. It's a challenge. But then again, like I said, then you have other months that you're fasting, then it's a lot easier. Right now, the sun is going down about, just say 7:30, around that time. So that's when we can eat or drink at that particular time.
It's like late dinner.
Yeah. But when you haven't eaten anything all day, it's more than just a late dinner, But even with that, part of the reasoning behind fasting is that people can be more empathetic and sympathetic towards people who are less fortunate. Because a lot of us, not all of us, but a lot of us, when we want something to eat or drink, we just go get it. We're snacking throughout the day. And there are people throughout the world that can't afford that. So this also gives you an opportunity to experience what other people are experiencing.
Interesting.
Yes. And with that, we're going to talk about, now, I spoke about the misconception of Easter versus sunrise, or as they say, sunrise Sunday, in our faith. And we're going to come back and we're going to look at the other disciplines and some of the misconceptions that people have about it. And we're going to dive into the real truth and the meaning. And we're going to do that in 2 minutes, 2 seconds.
Your small business struggled through the pandemic to stay afloat. You need more exposure. Radio and printed ads are good for pet liners. Television commercials are overpriced. Social media ads start cheap, end up expenses. You need an ad team that can get you multimedia exposure. You need MyTV. MyTV will develop a commercial tailored to your business. To get your maximum sales, contact sales@theratemytv.church.
Okay, we're back. So, biggest misconception that I always had growing up, a Jehovah's Witness, was watching everybody in my neighborhood, get brand new Sunday best clothing, Easter eggs everywhere, candy, and having a great time. But, when I started studying, I found out that, had nothing to do with the eggs or the candy or that hollow chocolate Easter bunny. Are there any misconceptions in the Hebrew faith?
Oh, quite a few, quite a few. One of the biggest, as you would say, a misrepresentation is we have a Hanukkah celebration not far from the Christmas celebration, right? And
Right.
Christmas is celebrated in the way that you two have both been talking about. I never experienced that before. But interestingly enough, Hanukkah was a minor holiday. It was, you know, just some small holiday, but because it landed roughly in December every year, and we were here in the Western world, the American Jewish community, we made it into a big thing so that our children wouldn't feel left out during what you would call the December dilemma for the Jewish kids. So that, ladies and gentlemen, that is a huge misplacement of customs. We're supposed to exchange gifts, if at all, at the time of Purim, not far from in the springtime. When it says actually in the book of Esther, send gifts to your neighbors. So that's there. We have these misappropriations all the time because of the cultures in which we find ourselves.
Yeah, but you can't beat getting gifts every day for multiple days.
Listen, when you're a minority living in a country of the majority, and everyone's talking about how great their Christmas gift was come Christmas morning, we Jews are going to outdo those Christians every time. We're going to say, okay, we didn't have a tree, but we had 8 days around a little Hanukkah bush. And there you go. Now all of a sudden, we've misappropriated and we've outdone and we've outshined. And you know what? We're all the poorer for it.
Well, my roommate in college, he was like, yeah, the first day is the best gift. By the 7th day, you're getting stuff like underwear.
Right. Well, on the 8th day, my parents made it a tradition to give us coal. So
I'm sorry, Rabbi, what was that, to give you what?
On the 8th day, they would give us a little bag of coal just so they could say that, we're giving you coal. And in my house, if you'll forgive this white rabbi's expression, we used to say it's a very black day for the Jewish people on the 8th day. There you go.
Boo.
We were speaking about the coal.
Boo.
Hey, stop that booing, all right?
Boo. Hey, I want to talk to our producer to get one of those soundtracks where we can just hit that in.
Yeah, just touch the button. That's right.
Yeah. Okay, Iman, misconceptions about Ramadan.
I'll say there's several. One is that I think a lot of non-Muslims, I would say that, just take our Ramadan and apply it to their own religion. In other words, like say around Christmas time, around Easter time, oh, this is your Easter, or this is your Christmas.
Yeah.
Not realizing that the theology is different, the purpose is different. That's one. Another one is that as Muslims, we fast. We encourage to get up very early in the morning, have a light meal, right? And we're told that is a mercy that Allah has given to the believers, right? To give us something to carry us through the day or the early parts of the night. So one misconception is people think it's just continuous. He says, man, are you kidding me? You're going to fast for 30 straight days? It says, no, actually, we get up early in the morning and we take a light meal. Another misconception that I've heard or is that people think that we are fasting for the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And of course, that's not accurate. It's in commemoration of the Quran, the holy book that was revealed. So I would say that's a few that that's kind of popular.
Okay,
so there is an important misconception of the Jewish tradition because people who read the Bible, and Vince, you said you came from a Seventh-day Adventist, or Jehovah's Witness.
Yes.
And if you read the Bible, you'll see in the Passover celebration, one has to sacrifice, a lamb, a ram, sheep, or goats, depending on, the ones you choose.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's clear in the Bible. It's written doctrine. But there are no Jewish traditions today that do that. The only tradition we have is that nobody.
Rabbi, people aren't bringing lambs, rams, bulls, and goats to the synagogue?
No, first of all, bulls weren't part of the proposition. But the Samaritans, if you remember the Good Samaritan of the Christian tradition, the Samaritans who primarily live in northern Israel, there's a small sect. They're still there, and they still observe the Passover. They actually do select from the rams, lambs, sheep, and goats. They select the rams, and they do roast them and follow the exact biblical doctrine. Exact.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you can go.
Okay.
Anyone can be invited to that celebration. I was thinking, by the way, Vince, that you should get the sponsor to take us as a delegation to the Samaritan Passover sacrificial feast, and we could all join in as a way of really celebrating the Bible from then till now in our own time.
Yes, right after I get the sponsors to pay the electric bill. But,
Okay.
but Christian faith of the resurrection is the sacrifices called Lent, where they just during the time period from the equinox to the resurrection Sunday, they sacrifice one thing for that period. You know,
They choose that, correct?
yes, they do.
And that's roughly a 40-day period. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. Sometimes longer, depending on, the span. But yeah. And I mean, like last year, my sacrifice was coffee. And I love coffee.
You select.
I select. Yes.
Sacrifice.
Yes.
And
Yes.
is that considered a connection to the sacrifices actually in the Bible or in the Torah?
Well, it's a connection, as the Imam said, the connection of those that do not have. The connection is the sacrifice of a life for eternal life, or the sacrifice of sins for a period of time. So it's more to keep you spiritually in line with the season or the holiday that you're celebrating, rather than, the commercialization of it. It's more the understanding of the sacrifice and the discipline that it takes to go 40 days without.
So fascinating. Well, just so you know that when people have asked throughout the centuries, why the ram? Why would you sacrifice that? Why the selection of the ram or the lambs, depending on what you choose? Why that? And if you look back at ancient Egypt, which obviously they're addressing, you see that that's the symbol of ancient Egypt. Even the month, if you look on the zodiac, is Aries. So that's the month of Egypt. That's the month of celebration. That's the Egyptian symbol. It's like if you went to Mumbai today in India and you started to harm a sacred cow, people would attack you. And the Bible is saying to these Israelites, you have to go and take the very symbol of Egypt, everything about Egypt. You have to take that symbol and you have to select it. You have to take it away, kill it, roast it, and then consume. What you don't consume, you have to consume by fire. You have to consume the whole thing. And it's been understood that this was done in order to teach a slave people that the symbol of their masters was nothing. Not only that, but you were to consume the symbol of your masters, digest your symbol of your masters, and excrete it as a way of a statement that they are not your masses anymore. You have the power to overcome the very symbol of your oppression. And that's how we've understood that ram, lamb, sheep, or goat scenario that's outlined in, chapters, 9, 10, 11, and 12 of Exodus.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I just want to say relative to fasting, as Allah, God tells us in our holy book, says fasting is prescribed for you as it was prescribed, those before you, meaning we say Akli Kitab, the people of the book, right? So that you may learn self-restraint or God consciousness, says Allah kum tatakun, right? So
correct.
It's a very spiritual time. It's not just the physical aspects of it. Oh, I'm not drinking anything. I'm not eating anything during the daytime. But to really, just like I'll give you a contemporary example, what I mean. Kansas and North Carolina played the other night, right?
Oh, here we go.
Probably I would be watching that. I did not watch the game, right? Because what I'm doing, I'm withdrawing myself from the things of the world, things that I would normally do. right? And so I'm trying to reach that level of we say taqwa, this God consciousness, right? Where you are withdrawing from some of the things of the world and really trying to renew
Focus on
yourself. Renew
right.
yourself. And then the prophet, peace be upon him, he says, if the only thing you get from Ramadan is hunger and thirst, then Allah God has no need of your fast. So are you still arguing? Are you still raising your voice? Are you still looking at things that maybe you shouldn't be looking at, listening to things that you shouldn't be listening? So what it tries to do is to renew the spirit and renew the soul, and hopefully you can carry, not to the extreme of withdrawing from the world, but carrying that God consciousness in the other 10, 11 months out the year.
Fascinating. Along those same lines, when, the prophet Isaiah, when he sees people fasting and yet doing things that are improper, and, we have lists of those things, crimes and ethics and morals. And he says, you're fasting on the outside, but on the inside, you're doing these things. Is this a fast that I require of you? That's not the fast. The fast is to remove yourself from those things of this world. And like the Imam says, refocus on God consciousness, on what God truly wants from us, to walk humbly with God and to do right and to live humbly with your fellow human being. That's what God wants. Yeah, and that's correct. That's what the fast is supposed to produce.
Correct. Yeah. And that's one of the biggest things in Christianity, in teaching the text and not the holidays of the world. It's all about, understanding why and getting a closer or getting more God-centered in your life to get you through, rather than the burdens, responsibilities, and traditions of the world. It's about your relationship. I mean, if you look at it, in Christianity, Christ fasted 40 days and 40 nights. And during the period of that fasting is where the devil came to tempt him with the three things, lust, flesh, worship, self-worshipness, and which I'm not going to go into the whole sermon of it. But after Christ avoided and fled all of that temptation while being extremely hungry. I mean, one of the things that Satan told him to do was, you've been fasting, right? If you're the Son of God, turn that stone into bread and eat. But after he passed those trials and becoming more and more one with God, he was rewarded with his first ministry.
I would turn that a little bit in the Jewish corner there and say that's important, but the fasting is supposed to, at least in the Jewish tradition of the last couple thousand years since the temple was destroyed, the fasting that we can no longer have from the sacrifice that I mentioned earlier, the fasting is supposed to turn you towards your fellow human beings as well. Just like the Imam was saying in the Islamic tradition, there are those who do without. And if this can help you feel what they feel and experience what they experience, then the fasting, at least from the tradition that I understand of the Imam and also of the Jewish tradition, I suspect in Christianity as well, the fasting helps you understand your fellow human being in a way that you might not have been able to had you not fasted and observed that command, if you will.
Yeah. I'm just guessing. I think the challenge there, really, I think in all of the faith traditions, is to carry on during this time of fasting, to take that spirit and try to continue with that. I'm willing to bet, metaphorically, of course, I'm willing to bet that in the Jewish faith, in the Christian faith, and I know in the Islamic faith, that during, say, these times of fasting or the holidays or whatever, the attendance doubles. Everybody comes out during that time.
Well, along those lines, I once saw a famous comic in the New Yorker where two witches were stirring this big cauldron with one of their big ladles, and there was a whole line like a mile long of witches behind them. And the first witch stirring says to the other witch, sure, they always show up on Halloween.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Well,
Same thing. So, during the holidays, so look, all of our attendances, they go up.
That's it.
And then after the
Halloween.
well,
holidays, they go
yeah,
down.
in the Christmas faith, we call them CME members.
Christmas.
Christmas, Mother's Day, and Easter. That's the only time they come to church.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well,
Well, we say Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and maybe Passover.
RMP. Okay. Okay. Now we're going to come back and let's talk about some of the holiday feasts. And we're going to take care of that. And I'm with the two wise men, my co-hosts, Iman Karib Bashir and Rabbi Seth Frisch. And we'll be right back in just 2 minutes.
Your small business struggled through the pandemic to stay afloat. You need more exposure. Radio and printed ads are good for pet liners. Television commercials are overpriced. Social media ads start cheap, end up expenses. You need an ad team that can get you multimedia exposure. You need MyTV. MyTV will develop a commercial tailored to your business. To get your maximum sales, contact sales@theratemytv.church.
Okay, as usual, the best part of this show is what happens during the break. One day I'm going to record this and it'll be like the greatest hits of all time. But
it's going to be called The White Album by the Beatles.
yes.
In this case, it would be the album of color. Excuse me, the album of color.
But okay, so holiday feasts, one of my favorite things. Any traditions that you love, Iman?
Yes, at the conclusion of Ramadan. Well, actually, let me back up a little bit, Vince, is that we have every night what's known as Iftar. Iftar
right.
is the breaking of the fast. And that's a challenge within itself because really you're supposed to eat the meal of a poor person. But again, the whispers of shaitan, right? Because sometimes with some of these iftars, they become almost like banquets and feasts, and it really shouldn't be like that.
No.
Now, as far as at the conclusion of Ramadan, we have what's known as Eid Day. All right, and that is actually a festive day. Gift giving, lots of food, visiting, things of that nature. So
yes, very, very happy people that day.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
40 days of fasting. Yeah, I'm happy.
Ready to eat.
Yes.
Well, for a Jewish person who grows up with the tradition of a Passover Seder every year, and we have a Passover Seder the first night and then on the second night, and there are so many traditional foods. But again, those are foods that are dependent on certain countries and locales that the various Jewish sects, SECTS, have come from. So, for example, we have matzah that I grew up with, which was like a very brittle cracker. And then other people grew up with matzah that's, very fluffy and light, depending on from another place in the world. And the one thing they had in common is that there was no yeast in either one of them, because of this idea that the children of Israel had to flee Egypt in such a hurry. Wow, what's that? It sounds like a bar mitzvah going on in somebody's house there.
Oh my goodness, he's really on a roll today.
Right, a roll. What? I said matzah, not a roll, Imam. Matzah. Okay. All right. So Vince is having a hard time there. I'm sorry, Vince. Anyway, so if they have to leave Egypt so hurriedly, no yeast, and it couldn't rise, and that's what unites the matzah tradition. I love it, and I especially love it with bitter herbs, also known as horseradish, in order to remind us of the bitterness of ancient Egypt. So I love those foods, the brittle cracker with a little bit of bitter herbs on it. It's really it's wonderful.
With our celebrations, it's really international, because at most mosques, not all, but most mosques, there you have, like, for example, in my masjid, we have people from several different countries in Africa. We have people from a couple different countries in the Middle East, India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, and the list goes on. So you get an opportunity to taste all of these different foods. It's just amazing with the spices and all. One thing you have to be careful about, some of those ethnicities or whatever, and their food is very, very spicy and hot. And even when you say, well, look, can you tone it down a little bit? It's still super hot.
So Imam, we love that. We love that because we have a department for that.
Well, the halal and the kosher have some similar spices.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I wouldn't say it falls under halal and kosher. It falls under the fact that a lot of us come from,
Mideast.
Right. We come from an area where spice was part of everyday life. Right? Yeah. Some people call it the spice of life, literally, Yeah.
Oh, God.
No, that's a serious thing. But we know that Europeans went to war over spice. We know that.
Salt.
Sure.
Salt, all kinds of, but also Spice Islands, for example. I mean, it's all part of, So you can imagine spices play a big role in these cultures that the Europeans lacked and went to war to find them. We had them. We from the Islamic or Jewish traditions. It's Christian Europe that went without and really troubled the world, looking not just for oil, but they went looking for the oil of the ancient world, which was spice.
Yeah. And something is that God has blessed all of us as human beings with the various types of foods and spices and all that. But when you're fasting, you really, really appreciate water, where you kind of take it for granted. But after fasting all day, especially if it's during the warm or hot months, you really appreciate it. And also even with food, because, and I can't speak for every single person that's fasting, but generally speaking, you're usually very tired when you're fasting. But then immediately after you eat, you get energy. But think about this. When you're not fasting, what happens when you eat? You get sluggish. But when you're fasting, it's just the opposite. You eat and then you get energy.
Well, Imam,
you know what I love about...
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Vince. Go ahead.
You know what I love about fasting is, well, of course, the spiritual connection is always greater, but also with fasting and the purification of the body, and then you bring in better foods, enriching, good for you, stuff that you normally wouldn't eat. Well, as you said, the meal of a poor man usually consists of fresh fruit and vegetables. And that is so good for the body. So not only are you purifying, your spirit, but you're purifying the body as well.
Yeah.
Imam, I was going to say the one area that I think I disagree with you is after a big Passover meal, especially if they've served turkey.
Yeah.
I noticed that everyone, when I was a kid growing up, everyone from the generation above me, older than I was, Everyone fell asleep immediately afterwards.
Yeah. Oh, turkey would
So that's going to be our one area of disagreement.
But I find to be kind of the opposite. And again,
I
I'm
do too.
referring to immediately after fasting, maybe 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, or whatever, is that oftentimes, I'll eat something to break the fast, and then I seem like I'm revitalized a little bit. And that's really what food is supposed to do. But the way that we normally eat, snacks here, desserts here, this, that, you eat, and then 10 minutes later, you want to take a nap. But I find that to be complete opposite when I'm fasting and
well, I remember when I was a kid, I lived in a Catholic neighborhood, and a lot of the Catholic homes near me, I lived in a very diverse neighborhood. A lot of the Catholic homes served fish on Fridays as a poor man's meal, Vince, like you were talking about earlier. And you know,
that's good. That's a traditional Good Friday meal,
right? And well, this was
and the
Friday.
Christian faith. No, well,
not anymore.
I mean, fish is every Friday, especially in a Catholic home. But in Christianity, Good Friday meal is usually fish, usually baked fish.
Right. So we also incorporate.
Oh, by the way, Rabbi.
Yeah.
Rabbi, in my culture, when you go to a big feast and you fall asleep, we call that itis.
Itis?
Right.
I don't know.
They call it the itis. You done caught the itis where you done ate and you fell asleep.
No, that's what that is. Okay, ate and fall asleep. I'm gonna have to remember that for this coming Passover. But we also incorporated something that the African American community and the Jewish community embraced early on. We have something called Gefilte Fish. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. Gefilte Fish?
I used to love gefilte fish.
Right. So it is made primarily, not exclusively, but primarily from carp. And my when I was growing up, my friends who were not of the Jewish faith would look at me and say, "How can you eat that stuff? It's made from carp." And my black friends would say, "Oh, we eat that all the time." And so we shared that culinary, that culinary experience with a lot of our African American friends and families. And when we told them that you put on horseradish on that to make it complete, I'm telling you, it was a Ramadan after hours feast, Imam, like you wouldn't believe, when we would serve gefilte fish and carp and all these spices. And all my Christian friends are like, "Yeah, we're not coming over there. We're staying away from it."
The horseradish, man. The horseradish did it, huh?
Well, it had to do with the carp and the horseradish together, and a little sprig of parsley. Parsley was key because freshen you up there. Yeah. Those are the Passover memories I have. And by the way, I should just tell you, you may not know this, but I'm going to tell you, originally MD 2020, Mad Dog 2020 was Mogan David. It was a Jewish wine long before other communities took it away from us. Just mentioning it.
Yeah, see, in my community, you got Mad Dog 2020 when you had more money. Before that, it was Night Train or Ripple.
Well, I was thinking Boone's Farm. But there was no kosher Boone's Farm, so we just had the MD 2020.
Oh, y'all just had the MD. Okay, that was the Jewish version of Night Train and more.
Right. Well, I never heard of Night Train, but Ripple and
Ripple.
Ripple. I don't know if you've heard of Ripple before, but yeah.
Oh no, but we did get introduced to Manischewitz.
What happened to Tom? Where did he go?
I think he's experienced some technical difficulties and it's just in time for us to take our final break. This is Vincent Squire, and we're talking about our traditions and how similar they are. And we'll be right back, and hopefully we'll have the Iman with us.
Your small business struggled through the pandemic to stay afloat. You need more exposure. Radio and printed ads are good for pet liners. Television commercials are overpriced. Social media ads start cheap, end up expenses. You need an ad team that can get you multimedia exposure. You need MyTV. MyTV will develop a commercial tailored to your business. To get your maximum sales, contact sales at the ratemytv.church.
Okay, so this guy says, God is sitting there, and the angel Gabriel comes up to God and he says to him, listen, I'm telling you how it is on earth today. The women are running everything. He says, no, it's not. It's not. The men are still, the head, not the tail. So Gabriel puts him to a challenge. So God says, okay, at the pearly gates, the long line. He says, okay, everybody whose wife runs the household, I need you to stand over here. Every man that runs their household, I need you to stand over here. So they moved. You see this line going for miles of men who said that their wife runs the household. And then there's only one guy on the other side. So Gabriel says, that's incredible. You're the only man who ran his household. He says, how did you do that? He says, I don't know. I was in line. My wife told me to go over there.
That was a good one, Vince.
Oh, God.
Really good one. I'm gonna think about that one a lot.
Okay, while your wife tells you to go over there. So, okay. So, Rabbi,
in our household, it reminds me of the Gospels where Jesus says, "In my Father's house there are many rooms." So, here in our household, I like to say, in our house there are many rabbis. One of them is my wife, one of them is my son, and of course, one of them is me. So we have many rooms, and it just depends in which room you stand as to how you stand within the confines of that joke.
Of the room. Okay. Okay. So, Rabbi,
tell people. A little diplomatic.
So, are people still recognizing you and saying that you're that rabbi I see on TV?
Well, I haven't had that in a while. The last time it happened, which I mentioned to you, I was in Center City, the famous city of brotherly love, and I was literally coming up from the subway, if you will, and as I get up, I arrive just across from City Hall. Someone says, "Hey, there's the little white rabbi," and I said, "That's me."
That's me. Yeah.
It was
Okay.
fantastic. I'm glad to be recognized. Out of my home, I forget who I am sometimes. So I do want to say this, though, to you, because I was thinking of Elijah. We were speaking about this before. But Elijah, in a Jewish household on Passover, we're supposed to leave the front door open. I don't know if you're familiar with this custom. And we're supposed to walk over to the door and say two things. First, we say, all who are hungry, come and let them eat. It's the opening of the Passover Seder. And no one's ever really walked in our house, but that's what we're supposed to do. The other thing we're supposed to do is leave we say, in case the prophet Elijah is standing there, we say there's a place for you at our table. And there's a cup of wine for you, and there's a plate for you. And the reason for that is that we think that Elijah, we share this, at least with the Christian tradition. I was going to ask the Imam if Islam has this as well, but we share with the Christian tradition the idea that in order to really prepare for a better world, whether it's a world of a Messiah or the kingdom of God on earth, or the ending of slavery, or the equality of human beings, or the ending of bloodshed, war, and famine, the best way to do that is to prepare for that, rather than to sit and pray all day. Oh, please stop this, please stop that. And Elijah is considered a human being who can lead us to prepare, to make the preparations, to do the hard work, the hard lifting, if you will, for a better world, a world in which we can literally witness an end to those things like warfare and bloodshed. And it's fleeting, but it's possible. And that's why we set a place for Elijah at our table.
Well, on that note, I'd like to say this. First, Rabbi, thank you as always for being on the show. Incredible how God had put together the three wise ones, a man and a woman of such impeccable knowledge, and have never failed us on the show. So, and Iman, if you're watching, thank you too. Okay, we don't know what happened to you, but we hope that you are well. I found out in business that every time I had a business lunch or business dinner, it always went well. Family gatherings around the holidays where there's food and festivity, it always went well. Our holidays, especially our holidays of feast, they always tend to go well because we're in a joyful mood. It's that coming together, that breaking bread together, that celebrating together, that gives us all joy. We have to stop looking at those things that separate us in terms of our belief and our faith, and look at more the things that unite us. We went through 4 years of the divider in chief that we call the president. We went through 18 months of isolation during COVID. As the world starts to open up more, let us be joyful of that opportunity to once again gain that in which we missed, our holidays, not just the simple fact of celebration, but the true meaning of it. I'm Vincent Squire. Thanks again, Rabbi Seth Frisch and Iman Kari Bashir. And if God's will, I'll be here tomorrow to discuss the issues of our life. Peace be upon you.
Your small business struggled through the pandemic to stay afloat. You need more exposure. Radio and printed ads are good for pet liners. Television commercials are overpriced. Social media ads start cheap, end up expenses. You need an ad team that can get you multimedia exposure. You need MyTV. MyTV will develop a commercial tailored to your business. To get your maximum sales, contact sales@theratemytv.church.